What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Got some super entertaining duels for you guys to check out. This first one is particularly interesting because it's a Fortune Lady build that mixes in a lot of generic spellcaster cards. Now, almost all of these are part of the Prophecy engine, and when you play Prophecy, you do get a ton of speed added to your deck. The entire Fortune Lady archetype is spellcaster based, and you get access to Spellbook of Secrets. You get access to Blue Boy and Spellbook of Knowledge, all that good stuff. But there's also some other tech in here, which I'm pretty sure I spoiled in the thumbnail and the title of the video, that allows you to get maximum usage out of your Fortune Ladies, being able to banish those cards from the graveyard, disrupt your opponent, and then put them back in your graveyard with cards like Future's Fortune. It's actually really damn nifty, and he's dueling against a it's like a Paleozoic Traptrix deck, which obviously this is going to be like polar opposites, spell-based deck versus trap-based deck. We'll see who wins. Nice +1 there. Turn 1, and Traptrixer is going to be summoned, and it's just going to be followed up with a bunch of back row. Not sure why there wasn't a battle phase, but the Fortune Lady player says, I'll go for battle phase, uses the copy of Spellbook of Fate before the Paleozoic Candinia actually resolves. That's smart because it's going to banish the copy of Sarah, and his opponent is going to try to follow up with Reckless Greed. I thought this was a little too early to just go for Reckless Greed here. I mean, I get it. I think what he's trying to do is, I think he's trying to pull out one of the Paleozoic cards so that he can summon Totally Awesome, but he still had defensive cards. I don't know why he just didn't wait, honestly, but, it's whatever. He's thinking about going for Totally Awesome, but here's that Disruptive card. Some of you guys have almost certainly never even seen this card. This is Skull Lair. So what happens is, you banish cards from your graveyard, monsters. The old broken version of Skull Lair back in GX, it was initially printed wrong where you could just banish any cards, but it was supposed to be monsters. You banish monsters from your graveyard up to the level of a monster your opponent controls, and then you get to pop that monster, and it works really well with the Fortune Ladies because cards like Future's Fortune can put them back in your graveyard, and then you can constantly use Skull Lair over and over again. So you guys will see right here, he's going to pop a monster, then he gets his Fortune Ladies, probably going to activate Future's Fortune, maybe this turn, maybe in the next turn, and he'll be able to get those monsters right back. Oh, looks like he's actually going straight for the Nightmare Phoenix. I thought Nightmare Phoenix in the 5 back row was pretty ballsy, but what do I know? He is going to use Chainlink 3 as Skull Lair, and what I think happened here is I think that the copy of Dupe Frog actually ends up missing the timing, because I think that the last thing to happen was actually the Skull Lair, so I believe that it does end up missing timing in a chain. There's your copy of Future's Fortune, putting monsters back in your graveyard so that you always have something to banish from Skull Lair, and it's really awesome in this matchup because all his opponent's monsters are going to be level 2, so he doesn't really have to banish that many. If his opponent was running a deck with a lot of high level monsters like True Kings or something like that, True Dracos, maybe it wouldn't be all that good, but against this matchup where his opponent is exclusively, for the most part, summoning monsters that are level 4 to level 2, it's pretty easy to keep the card live. Once again, Future's Fortune. He's also going to use the copy of the Chocolate Magician Girl that gets him even deeper into his deck. And you can see he's just going to constantly draw card after card after card after card. Probably going to use Spellbook of Knowledge at some point in this turn because why not? You got it in your hand. Might as well go for it. Oh, he had one set. Okay, that's why he didn't activate the one in his hand. And he does get the ability to play Silent Magician as well, which gives you potential disruption in addition to your Skull Lair. So it's nice, and you can see his opponent obviously is being grinded down. He summons the Swamp Frog, it instantly gets popped. Even with the Ronin Totem, he probably knows as soon as my turn starts, he's just gonna pop it again with Skull Lair. Maybe he doesn't, maybe he's just gonna run it over, but he's just getting way too many draws. Okay, he's gonna use Spellbook of Fate, and then he's just gonna kill him. I thought that was actually pretty interesting, and you can see he had other floodgates as well. He had a copy of Rivalry and another Rivalry, which against a normal Paleozoic deck would not have been actually that good, but against a Traptrix version where the Traptrix monsters are insects and then the Paleo cards are like aqua, it's going to be able to do a little bit of work. Second duel is Madoche facing off against a dinosaur variant. Madoche is one of those archetypes, very similar to a lot of like ABC and True Draco. It's an archetype from a previous era. These guys are from Zexal. It's an archetype that I personally do not feel like it's been power creep. This is what I was talking about in my video talking about why a lot of rogue decks are winning YCSs. It's because a lot of these Zexal and Arc V archetypes, they're not really power creeps. Like Tiramisu is just as good now as she was back during Zexal, and Madolche have gotten a lot of cards in the past couple of sets. Savage Strike, Dark Neostorm. I feel like, you know, I'm not gonna say Madolche is gonna win a YCS or anything, but I wouldn't be shocked if Madolche did top a YCS. That's what I'll say. Anyways, he's playing Forbidden Chalice. This is a card that I've been messing around with in my Salaman Great deck. I feel like it's kind of just as good as something like Effect Veiler. I think that it's mainly just used kind of as a breakthrough skill and permanence type card. Really good if you're going second because it can instantly just negate one of your opponent's monsters, conduct a Tyranno, other, you know, stun cards, so you can actually just like play. I think maybe he may have used it a little too early here, using it on the Oviraptor. If you were going to use it then, you probably should have just used it on the summon. I probably would have feared if my opponent has like 5 cards in hand, I would have feared the Miscellaneous Ceratosaurus, so I just would have held the Chalice and let them play it out, let them go for a card that's not a dinosaur, maybe like a Summon Sorceress or something, then use it on that, or maybe True King of All Calamities, because looks like he is maybe going for a Summon Sorceress play here, actually decides not to. There's Miscellaneous Ceratosaurus, and, well, no, actually, Summon Sorceress is there, so I probably would have saved it for Chalice, but I think the Dinosaur player was afraid, or excuse me, the Madolche player was afraid of the search of, or I don't actually know, well, he had already searched, so I don't know what he was afraid of, to be honest, because I was like, maybe he was afraid of Conductor Tyranno, but he had already used his search. Anyways, dinosaurs are getting real now, drops the World Legacy Miko, and going for the Neck Knight Astra, man, looking pretty good right now. He does use the effect to basically nuke the board with this guy, the World Regalia Demi Gear. I knew I was going to mispronounce that damn name. This card is unaffected by monster effects, by the way, currently, because it was made with a whole bunch of high-level monsters, and it's a very strong card. He does get Conductor Tyranno on board. Luckily, Madolche ticket is on field, so that does mean that those Madolche monsters are going back to the hand, and you know, he does end up with a board that's really not that impressive. I mean, yes, this Conductor Tyranno does have disruption, but it probably is going to have to launch itself, and this guy's unaffected, but at that point, it's like the only monster you have. Now, this card can also blow up the field, a la like Dark Hole style, but you know, Madolche do have a little bit of resistance against that because he has the Madolche ticket, actually has 2 copies of ticket, which is a little redundant, but it's all good. He's going to go for the Madolche XC monster. This is the one that's a teacher coming out in Dark Neostorm, and it's really good against his board because even when he does use the board nuke here or the board wipe, she is unaffected. So it's nice because at least you have something on field to potentially block an attack, and he's 2,400 life points, so he does have to start being concerned a little bit with his you know, life point threshold, and it feels like if he can just get through this turn, he should be able to win. 900 life points is more than enough to get through, you know, basically get through that turn, and Madolche, because of the fact that he has Madolche Chateau on field, he should be able to get over a 3,500 monster. Like, most decks would struggle because this is unaffected by monster effects. You gotta kaiju it, or you gotta use something else against it, but he's like, nah, Cap, I'm just gonna ram straight into it, head on, no fear, because he goes for Madolche Chateau, and then he also has the Mrs. Radiant. So every monster he has is basically getting 1,000 extra attack, and when you got this many monsters on field, you can easily OTK. So yeah, I think Madolche is a deck that, if properly built after Dark Neostorm, because the XC does come out, the new XC, she comes out in Dark Neostorm, I wouldn't be shocked at all if it did actually end up topping a YCS. Let's pause for one quick second and check out the Fortune Lady build. So this is what the deck looks like on paper, and predictably, every single monster in this entire deck is Spellcaster, including even the freaking Hand Trap. You are playing Effect Veiler, which is also a Spellcaster, so if you ever need that desperation play, you gotta normal summon your Effect Veiler to activate a Spellbook of Knowledge or a Spellbook of Fate. No shame in the game, man. Desperation plays happen to everybody once in a while. I do like the addition of Silent Magician, just giving you another disruption. I like cards like this that get progressively stronger. Starts out at 1,000 attack, gets 500 attack, you know, during each, I believe it's each standby phase. So the card does get up, once it gets to about 2,500, it's going to be incredibly difficult for your opponent to kill. I think it's really interesting that Silent Magician, and I do understand this is a much newer card, but Silent Magician looks way better, and it just looks stronger than the Silent Magician level 8, like, doesn't it? I mean, she's not only thicker and better looking, even though it's technically the same monster, but I don't know. In fact, I would rather just negate my opponent's spells than be unaffected, have one monster unaffected, because if my opponent activates a card that doesn't affect my monster, then, you know, that effect is kind of no good to me if my opponent's activating a Monster Reborn or a Desires or an Extravagance or something like that. So I feel like Magician, the regular one, is just better, but this is in here just in case that she dies. You can basically summon this one for free. Hopefully you didn't draw it because it is a little bit of a brick. Also running this interesting card. This is Blizzard Princess. Never had seen this card before. When I looked at the artwork, I was like, is this a long lost ice barrier or something like that? It does say that you contribute this card in face-up attack position by tributing any one spellcaster, which basically is, you know, the entire archetype. And your opponent cannot activate spells and traps for the rest of the turn. Now, the thing is, I don't really know if, because this deck doesn't feel like a deck that ever is going to really be able to OTK. Maybe even if you threw like a Boil Sword Dragon in here, how are you really getting like that many monsters on field? I mean, I guess it can be nice if you're trying to push for damage because this is a 2800 attacker, but maybe this could be better served as something else. I just don't know if that effect in this deck is going to be that good, because if that was in like a deck like, you know, Luna Lights or Fluffles or something where you could like OTK easily, I'd get it. It'd make a lot more sense. But, you know, unless you plan on somehow summoning this card during your opponent's turn, has to be a normal summon to get that effect, by the way. I just don't know if it's really worth it. But yeah, the trap cards, Rivalry of Warlords, obviously just solid floodgates, and then Skull Lair, which is your disruption card, and we talked about how that's basically used with things like Future's Fortune to banish monsters and then put them back into your deck and constantly disrupt your opponent with